Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so we've been catching up for a couple of minutes, but I just thought it would be really cool for us to kind of like chat about who you are, and what you offer to the world. And yeah, let's start there.
I love it. My name is Rianne, and I'm a movement teacher and an embodiment teacher. I also do energy work, and I teach a class called aura toning. And it's a movement class that helps you tone your aura and transform your energy using movement, water, and light. So we work a lot with the water of your body, all the different water systems of your body. And yeah, I'm super passionate about it. It's just a class that I feel like has so much like depth of love behind it. And I'm just really excited to be sharing and talking about it.
I love that. So we met really randomly through a mutual friend. And I feel like the universe always just puts people in places when they need them. Um, and and yeah, and you described your class, and I'm a triple water sign. I'm Pisces, and I'm double Pisces. I'm Sun Pisces, Moon Pisces, and then I'm rising Cancer. So I was like, waters, what? um, and came to class and absolutely loved it. And I think for me, what was really special about it was, I've been, and I think a lot of us are struggling with this, is like this kind of transition from what was a really kind of like stringent way of living. And I'm going to be weird and use like the Piscean versus Aquarian era, but like the whole time shift between basically 2016 until now is really shifting us from this kind of like old school, very rigid masculine way of living into more of this like feminine, soft, communal, heart-led, way of being. And we've started to see that transition with the pandemic, I feel like, where we went from being in an office and having this like really rigid schedule where we would go to the gym after work or before work, and then you're kind of just like in this structure and schedule forever, into a period where it was kind of like, oh, I have this malleability, and I have like this space to kind of develop and really understand and tune into what my body wants. And I've been in that place for a while, and I probably had too much time to think about it. But I went from a really rigid schedule of yoga and walking and running into not really doing much, and then kind of emerging out of that and being like, what do I actually want to be doing to move my body? And when I came to your class, I was like, this feels like what I want to move my how I want to move my body. And I said it to you before we started recording, but it really to me kind of was this ping of like, this is the future of fitness, and this is really where I feel like fitness is going, is it's a little bit more, intuitively led, and from the core of like who we are and how we want to move our bodies. So I'd love to hear more about that and your opinions on this.
Yeah. Ooh, I love so much of what you said. And it's really interesting because it feels like with the pandemic and also just with the when you're talking about the Piscean Aquarian age, and that's like the um I don't know the exact date of it. I feel like it's kind of talked about in different ways where some are like it's the turn of the millennium and others are like 2012 and others are like now.
Right.
But in general, it's like it's a wave, it's happening. Maybe it's not supposed to be exact.
Right.
um, but with that was like the internet was like became a big thing. Um, and I am super aware of we have these like water bodies. We have our like water holds memory. It knows potential. It holds so much consciousness. And I almost feel like the internet when that hit and then there was like so much information available to us all the time, it
Mm,
almost became like too much. I think there's a sense of like we're getting less able to really like digest all that we're getting taken in. So it's really interesting because I feel like the rigidity of the past kind of doesn't work just because like the tide has changed in humanity.
I love that. I very strongly identify with this. And it's like, the tech overload and the information overload, it's like wreaking havoc.
Totally, totally. And like when we look at water, and I'm like a real nerd, so I'm gonna try not to get too like scientific about it, but
Yeah, you can. Safe space.
yeah, safe space. Yeah, never too weird with us,
No.
especially when there's a lot of Pisces involved, which there is.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait, are you also Pisces?
I have a lot of Pisces in my chart. Like
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm a Pisces or an Aries rising. It's always been you're either very heavy Pisces, Aries, or you're a Pisces rising.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. Um, but when we look at water, it like the water molecules form a structure. And we have water in our bodies. We also have water in our energy fields, in our auras. Like there's water in the air. But it's like sort of like water is like a computer where it takes on a lot of information and then it computer might not be the right word, but it takes on information and then it creates a structure based on the information.
Hmm.
So when we are um, doing these things that are like cleansing our bodies and moving our bodies in a really conscious way and moving our energy field at the same time in a conscious way versus like using your mind to kind of like, I have memories on the treadmill of being like pushed through it, like kind of like putting a wedge between your body and your own energy field using the power of your mind.
Right.
um, it creates dissonance in the water of your body, the water of your energy. Um, so what I really wanted to do with oratoning was create a practice that was an integration of the holistic self. So the energy wants to move, it wants to cleanse itself, it wants to move like the way that living water is in nature. It doesn't want to be a stagnant lake or a pond that's breeding disease. Even if it's a pond, it wants to be rippling, you know? Um, so I wanted to create something that would help us do that, that would help us like activate that strength, activate the salt and the sweat in our body, but also not be like a punishing system. Um, and that's kind of where it came from. And I come from a really long background of yoga. I've been doing it since I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, my mom gave me a video when I was 3, and I just kind of always stuck with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like the thing that made me the most weird as a kid is the thing that like is now the center of my life in many ways.
That's usually the case. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And I love yoga, but I started to when I was around 18, I developed an eating disorder and started to use like yoga as a tool for it and
Mm,
kind of had to learn to um, find the sacredness in these practices again. And for me, that was by incorporating the water body, the fluid movements, and kind of moving outside the boundaries of the structure that even yoga had created for me, you know?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually I've done two teacher trainings now, one in Kundalini and one in Vinyasa. And I don't remember where it was exactly that I heard this. It might have been in the Kundalini training, but just that yoga is a very masculine practice and actually has like a long history of being practiced by men in like the ashrams. And it's kind of this like very rigid, like in its core and like in its history, just like these certain poses that were repeated over and over and over again. And it's just interesting because it's taken on so much more of like a feminine feel, or like more kind of like, I don't know, it's just like it's a softer thing, I feel like, in our Western society, but actually its history is a little bit more rigid. And and yeah, it's been interesting. I've had, because I've also practiced for quite a bit of time, and I was going every single day and it was like such a part of my life. And I feel like in the last couple of years, I've sort of been not resistant, but kind of just like not interested in it as much. It's like this thing that doesn't pull me in as much as it used to. And I still come to my mat, but it's just not with the same sort of like, I guess, like schedule and sort of like rigidity that I had before. Um, and so, yeah, I just resonate with a lot of what you're saying in terms of like working with your body rather than against it.
Yeah, yeah. There was something that was getting like dutiful about yoga, and it's interesting because they I heard that yoga was it was used to train warriors. It was also used to train young boys to repress their sexual urges when they were like going through puberty. So like it does have that very like, you know, mind over matter kind of vibe, even
Right.
though that's not even the real roots of yoga. The roots of yoga is like mirroring nature.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I would love if you could tell us a little bit about aura toning and kind of like what someone could like almost like walk us through a class a little bit. What are people gonna expect or like how are they gonna feel? What does the class entail? So on.
I have had seasoned movers come to my class and love it. I've also had people that are like, I don't like working out. I'm very like, energetically sensitive and I know that I should move my body, but I don't like the traditional workout. So I've really had kind of all walks of life come into aura toning, which has been really cool. But you come in and we move through a 3-part wave because the class has always been very inspired by water. So we go through kind of a invocation for about the first 10 minutes where there's a meditation that'll help you connect with your aura. And then it moves into movement where you start to physically adjust your auric field.
Mm,
And then we go into the first wave, which is the sun. So this is when we build more heat, we build sweat because we want to get that ocean body kind of going, releasing, transforming energy. And the class will eventually kind of peak um, at the most kind of level of intensity about halfway. And then we kind of descend down into the moon, which is like the river, the sweet water. And this is marinating in kind of all of the space we've created during the sun part of class and
mhm,
doing more flowing, stretching movements close to the earth, more focused on the fascia and the nervous system balancing. And then we move into the mystic, which is the mist and the aura. And that's the moving meditation. And so much of the inspiration of that class was using the sun and the moon to create that state of receptivity and openness to be able to move with your own energy field. It's like a dance.
mm.
Um, my favorite part. And then at the end of class, we lie down just like at the end of a yoga class if you've been in like a shavasana to balance out. And then at the end of class, there's a water blessing where we bless the water that we're drinking. It's super simple. And I give a little aura reading to the group.
That was like the coolest part of the experience for me. I'm such a geek and like love seeking out energy reading and I always want to know more about what's going on in my field and I take aura photography and like all of that kind of stuff I just absolutely love. Um and it really caught me by surprise. I forgot that that was a part of the class and then we kind of all were getting back into ourselves and drinking our water and you read like parts of the body and I remember you pointed out like kind of around the back of the like mid back and into the rib cage and it was exactly where I was feeling tension during the class and I was like like totally blown away but it was amazing because it was like I felt like the class really addressed that in a way and it just felt really like I was kind of moving my energy in ways that I hadn't in literal years and speaking to you right now I'm like I need to come to class again It was just so nice to move my body in that way and like to open up these parts of me that felt so stuck for a long time. So that was very, very cool.
Yeah, it's so cool how like it's always funny when the aura reading's coming in. It's coming in through the whole class.
Yeah.
And when it's, sometimes the most random things will come through where I'm like, should I say that? And I'm always glad that I do, because it's always something like that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'm curious, like, how this idea dropped in for you. Like, when was kind of the, inception? Like, what were you doing, and how did you just kind of come to this idea and birth it into the world?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I think I started doing yoga teacher training around 18 because I did quite a few. And then um, I was in art school and I ended up leaving art school to pursue a degree in somatic healing because I really wanted to understand, excuse me, um, I really wanted to understand how to help people heal their body through their own personal practice. And I didn't know why that was like a mission for me, but I even went to um, the CUNY graduate school in New York, and I was like, I need you to help me make a degree, and that's what we did.
Wow.
I teamed up with the dance departments. There was some yoga, there was some psychology, kinesiology, and we kind of collaborated to make a program. And then they also helped fund a second yoga teacher training that had more of a kind of somatic yoga therapy energy.
Mm.
I studied all different types of dance from different cultures that um, were connecting to spirit and connecting to themselves in a really deep way. Um, and I was kind of like gathering intel, but I didn't know what my class would consist of
Mm.
um, until probably around 2020 was when I started to kind of feel like I could be in my own energy enough to just kind of let it evolve. And then honestly, I remember I would go to Central Park every day and I would just like lay in the grass and enjoy being with it was just me and the dog walkers because no one was there. And it was heaven. Um and it honestly it dropped in a like in an hour and like the whole anatomy of the class, the structure with the water, um, even the name, even though I doubted the name for like 2 years because I was like, oh, auras, I don't know if that's too creepy for people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
So
but
cool.
yeah, it dropped in a very kind of magical way, but with a lot of meat behind it.
Totally. That's incredible. Like such a cool. I always love when like I feel like I don't know if you've read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. That
Yeah,
is like my Bible. And honestly, I feel like she totally gets it with like when ideas come in, it's like they choose the source. They like come in and they're like, okay, we're gonna try this like body and this human, and like this is a person that can like bring this forward. And you kind of have to just like do it. And it comes in like this really complete way. So that's like so cool that that came in, and it's definitely it's a beautiful, beautiful class.
thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
of course.
Yeah.
We're gonna we have 7 minutes with my free Zoom. I don't know if there's anything else that we want to like chat about in particular. I feel like I could like talk to you for a really long time about this. And like
Same. I feel like there's
yeah,
yeah.
we didn't even really get into like the aura stuff as yet, which like I feel like is a whole other layer of your offering that I find so interesting.
Yeah, totally. I mean, um, it's really interesting because there was a time when I was just like, I didn't even like energy is it's so complex and it's so kind of like it's not black and white.
Right.
Like literally it's not black and white, but there's not this kind of like clear cut way of the way that that the aura works. I just kind of see what I see in through patterns with people, and then I start to kind of notice those patterns and report them. Um, but I started to see when I was younger, I would see like beings around people.
Wow.
Um, and that was kind of where it began, where it was like guides and ancestors and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it started to move into more like water, where I would just see like movement patterns and colors. And then it started to become like water molecules in the air. And then that's a lot of what's the aura is made up of. So I'm told it's so mysterious, even to someone who sees it.
Right.
Right. But yeah, it's really beautiful to be able to experience that level of like um it really teaches me how connected everything is. Like people and nature are so connected and are really a part of something together.
Mm.
And I think that it gave me this really big gift and like a responsibility of knowing, not to get stuck in my humanness of like thinking I'm alone or thinking that there's not this like incredible beauty and connection of all things. Um, and it feels like such a gift to be able to experience that. And I wish everybody could see it.
That's God, I couldn't have asked for a better answer. That's like literally the most beautiful thing I've heard, and really is something that I feel like I have an awareness around too, and am so like I love that connect the interconnection, and like just I'm always awed by how beautiful this earth is and like how lucky we are to be here. And despite all the craziness that's happening, there's just so much to be like in awe of, and just like how incredibly connected we all are. So I absolutely love that. And I think, that's definitely testament to, the type of workout that you offer, and not even workout, but like just offering that you bring to the table. Um, yeah, I think this is like a beautiful place for us to close in. I'll just say thank you so much. It was really, really nice to chat with you about this. And I'm sure we'll probably have more conversations, and I'll also kick it to my readers to see if there's anything they're curious about. I feel like there's a lot of things you could probably do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I feel like we have a ton to geek out on.
Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm like super giddy talking to you about all of this because it's just like my favorite topic.
Yeah,
Oh,
totally.